Well, hey everybody, this is Chris DeFurio with Keys to the Shop. Welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Today's episode is brought to you by La Marzocco, who has been making espresso machines by hand in Florence since 1927. They are at the pinnacle of what I would consider quality, beauty, innovation, and dependability. When it comes to espresso machines, La Marzocco is the quintessential machine of the coffee industry. That's why some of the best bars in the world are dedicated to using La Marzocco. One of the great machines that they've invented as a testimony to their innovation is the KB90 espresso machine. Straight-in locking portafilters for ergonomics, scales built into the drip tray for accuracy of your extractions. They also have the auto flush feature in the group heads, which keeps things really clean and better workflow. It's really a great machine, but it's one of many different types of machines that are built specifically for your type of cafe. So there's a machine for every need that you might have. La Marzocco USA is available to help you make the right selection for your cafe. Just email them, info@lamarzocousa.com. You can also check out their website over at lamarzocousa.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Espressly, who's creating custom branded mobile apps for your coffee shop. With Espressly, you're not just a dot on the map. This is your world in the palm of your customer's hand. So it's the convenience of mobile ordering and the culture and fit and branding of your cafe. What's not to love here? With Espressly, it's a no-risk model. There's no setup or development fees. You get a drive-through payment scanner, receipt and label printing capabilities. All of the data is stored in the app, and it integrates with some of the world's best payment processing systems, including Square. So this is definitely a win in terms of service to your customers. If you've been thinking about getting a branded mobile app, then you need to check out Espressly. Go visit them and have them get started on your app today over at espressly.co. That's Espressly.co. Okay, everybody. Well, today I wanted to talk about, I guess you could call it the future of training and the future of how your employees are set up for success in the cafe. And this is something that is maybe a product of COVID. I don't think it is exactly. Maybe COVID accelerated this. But one of the things we know is for sure, prices are going up. In terms of cost of living, we need to pay our baristas more. We need to create a living wage and a structure for our cafes, and especially for those of you who are starting cafes, this is a conversation to have right from the get-go. But one of the things that we have to think about is how many people we actually have on staff. At any given moment, I feel like most cafes are on one side or another. They are woefully understaffed in terms of just like one person on at all times, and there's just these rushes that really, it's only the tips that the people get from these rushes that keep them from all out quitting and rage quitting because it's so frustrating, and I've totally been there. Or there's so many people working, nobody knows what to do, and it's just a mess. And I've seen this as well, where it's like you've got tons of help, but no one's really being helpful. And the customers really don't seem to be getting through faster or having as good a time because people are just kind of bumping into each other. And, there, of course, is a lot of middle ground here. So what I think this boils down to is an issue of trust. We maybe have this weird notion of trust with this single employee that has to deal with a bunch of business. And we say, oh, we trust you, you can handle it. But we're not actually setting them up for success because there's a limit to how much one person actually can do physically, just based on the size of your space and the number of hands that a person has, and the number of customers that you have. It's not an honest way of discussing trust. It's basically just saying, I'm going to abdicate my responsibility to resource somebody, and that might be with another person. And the reason we don't want to put another person on is because obviously it's going to cost more money, but and maybe we don't think there's enough business for it, which is a whole nother episode really about, the traffic that you get in your coffee bar might be a reflection on people's trust in your ability to handle their business. I've seen it many times. You just add another person. All of a sudden you send this message, oh, they can actually get through faster. I'm going to eventually start to trust that I can give them my business. And then you see your numbers go up. And now it's not as simple as that, but sometimes it actually is. But back to the question at hand, and that's the issue of, why do we have this understaffed thing, right? And Part of it is we really don't know how to train people. We don't know how to resource them well. We know we haven't resourced this one person very well. We're hoping that they'll make up for that with their innovation and tenacity and things like that, where we don't seem to be willing to employ much of that ourselves. We're hoping that we can sort of buy that through hiring, which is not really fair. Then there's people who just like throw a bunch of people at the problem and they say, all of you people just go do these very specific things, and we're going to, have 6-7 people behind the bar, and you're all going to do these. You're going to write on cups. You're going to like fill the cups, and you're going to et cetera, et cetera. So it's all these very hyper-focused things that these people do. But then we're like, oh, we're not making profit. This happens a lot where we feel we are needing to resource our team. And often what we do is we say, okay, we'll resource you with more people. What we're not doing is we're not training. We're not resourcing well the people that we have. Instead, what we're doing is we're avoiding the conversation about making better what we have and taking it and kind of making it worse by adding more people to an already shaky system. So really, you can guess the answer here is, what can you do to make more of what you have in a fair way, in an innovative way that will truly resource people to serve your customers well and not be burned out in the process? That means that, you might actually have to put more than one person on the shift at one time. Some of you may not need this. It depends on the model that you have. But once you start to get those $200 hours, especially a $300 hours, one person just can't handle that. 2 people, sometimes, depending on your cafe, you need at $300 to $400 an hour, maybe more than 3 people. You need to make these decisions based truly on observing the reality of the workflow on your bar, the disposition of the people, what you've actually given them as tools to do the job. Make that decision mindfully. Don't just throw people at it. The people who have so many baristas working in their cafe, my challenge to you is, how can you do more with fewer people and compensate those fewer people more? So like I said in the beginning, we need to make the work of the barista more of a professionalized role. In the future of coffee bars, what we don't need coffee shops with a large staff of specialists. We need coffee bars that are staffed with a lean team of highly paid and highly capable and cross-trained professionals. This is the future. We can complain all we want about, how much it costs now, and you're being forced to pay more, but the role itself has not evolved. That's the very first thing that we need to start looking at. This is something that happened recently where I was working with a client who had a lot of people behind the bar. And some of the reason that this was happening was because within the context of communication between staff and leadership is busy with their things, staff are busy with their things, and then there's just like, we need more help. We need more help because we're stressed out. And so the answer is more people. But the challenge was, okay, maybe we don't need more people. Maybe we just need a more organized workflow, and we need better role clarity. And we need to sort of say, look, we're going to train everybody to be more capable and responsible for a greater number of items in the cafe with a smaller team. Went down to 4 people, and it worked. People felt really great about it. They felt a lot more pride in the work, and they realized, yes, we can do it. When it comes down to it, your role as a leader is not just to listen and obey the first thoughts of a team that's under stress in the cafe. Sometimes it's to push, and sometimes it's to challenge. Not because somebody's incapable and you're frustrated, but because you realize that maybe you haven't provided enough of a platform for helping them be successful. And this is one of those ways that you can do it. We need professional roles that are highly trained in a lot of different areas and are treated professionally and paid professionally. My guess is that if you're one of those coffee bars that has a lot of people on your staff, if you and I had a conversation and we explored the daily business that you handle, I'm going to guess that there's a way that we can cut down on the number of people that you currently employ. Over time, it's not like you just go in there and start just cutting people. Naturally, people are going to start putting their 2 weeks in because they're going back to school. Or, this job isn't for them anymore. They just have to move on to something else. They graduate or whatever. And that's a great opportunity to not replace that role and see how can we arrange the cafe? How can we arrange the roles, the workflow in order to do more with less, not to try to take advantage of people. Again, because we're trying to compensate people more. We're trying to resource them more and treat them with more dignity and raise them up as professionals. That is the underlying goal here, after all. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. Really what this comes down to is revamping the way that you structure your employees, and the kind of people that you bring in might need to change as well. So instead of hiring an entire flock of hyper part-timers that only work like 1 day a week each or something like that, we need to start looking at how we can build these roles to attract talent, to get full-time workers that we are committed to investing into, both in skill on the job and compensation for the job, and their ability to do it well and efficiently. So leaner teams, more capable, more professional. This is the future, I think, of cafes and employees in cafes. And if we do that well, then we not only safeguard our businesses and create more longevity for our businesses, we also safeguard the experience for our staff and, of course, the hospitality experience for our customers. So I hope that this was helpful today. Love to know what you think, as always, on these things. So feel free to email me, chris@keystotheshop.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, share these episodes. Thanks, everybody, and I will see you here next week on another edition of Shift Break. From Keys to the Shop.